So I've turned on the recording. Guys, once again, I want to introduce you to Olga Anatolievna Reshetnikova. She is an official dealer of the company Nuga Best, so she has extensive experience working with the devices. She uses non-traditional methods of hardware treatment, and for 19 years, she has been applying specifically Eastern rehabilitation methods. So listen carefully. This is take 2, yes, but now we'll try with the video. Welcome, Olga Anatolievna, everyone.
Yes, good day, thriving team. I am very pleased to communicate with such wonderful people. I love you all very much. And today we will touch a little, well, probably not a little, on the contrary. Today we will take a deep look at one of the company's devices. What is it? It's Insoles. Today we will talk about them. A few words about myself. For 19 years, as was mentioned earlier, I have been helping people stay healthy without medication. I work in a company that primarily focuses on the restoration of the spine and the musculoskeletal system. And I became very interested in this particular device within the company. I can't call it anything else. It's insoles. They are called orthopedic insoles, but I really want to call them something else because, guys, these are not just insoles. They are a healthy lifestyle starting from the roots of our feet. And today we will thoroughly examine this foot device. As they say in the East, the feet are the second heart of a person. Why the second heart? Because a very large percentage of our body's overall health depends on the feet. And in our feet, the left and right foot there, are these sail-like muscles, which, yes, now I've drawn the foot like this. Some of us are here for the second time today, some for the first time. The arch of the foot. In the arch of the foot, we have the sail-like muscle. And the health of our spine depends on it. But in general, our feet, yes, what do we have in the foot? This includes flat feet. As the very first possible neuropathies, cramps, numbness, cold feet, stiffness of movement, and joint problems in the legs. That's it. And a lot of what I just mentioned depends precisely on the condition of our feet. In the past, people with flat feet were not taken into the army. Well, it wasn't considered a serious illness. But in fact, this condition is indeed very serious because with flat feet, when a person has a flattened arch muscle, there is a very large load on the spine. And now we will go over this with you. Aika! What is it exactly? The arch muscle in the foot acts as a kind of shock absorber for our spine. And as our wise doctors say, you are as young as your spine is young. So, the health of our spine directly depends on the condition of the foot. The arch muscle acts as a shock absorber, and almost all of you have cars or are drivers yourselves. And you know that when the shock absorbers in a car break down, when the shock absorbers are in good condition, the car rides smoothly over all bumps and potholes. But as soon as this shock absorbing spring breaks, the car starts going over all those bumps. Thud, 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 like that. And a broken shock absorber completely disables the entire suspension system of the car. I'm not giving this comparison for no reason, because this particular muscle cushions impacts when walking, book, running, even when we're standing or riding somewhere, like standing on a bus. This muscle softens the impacts on the spine. That is, they become soft. It cushions our entire body, and yes, the vertebrae as well. between which the intervertebral discs are located. And all of this softens our movements. But as soon as the position of our foot changes, our foot flattens, the cushioning stops, and when we walk, there are certain impacts on the spine. That is spirit, spirit, spirit. Do these impacts on the spine disable the intervertebral discs, which start to flatten. And a little later, I will show you clearly how this happens in the spine. Right now, I have drawn this kind of foot. Yes, it is clearly visible there. This is a correct foot with the proper arch. The spine in the human body looks like this. So let me make it more visible. You can see it, right? Here I have drawn a little person. Well, I'm not an artist, but I tried. So here is our spine. Now I'll place a white sheet underneath to make it clearly visible. And let's take a look at what's happening here. Look, here we have a kind of magic happening. The curve of our foot perfectly mirrors the curves of our spine. Look. And so each curve in our foot supports each section of the spine. So this is a perfect match. When over time, or maybe even from childhood for some, when this arch muscle sags, the back starts to hurt. We just often don't even know or understand why our back hurts. Each of you can test your feet. Even if you think you have a perfectly ideal foot. We have this picture here. I recommend everyone to test their foot at home. How do we do this? We take 2 sheets of clean paper, place them shoulder width apart, put a bowl of water, dip your foot in the bowl, and transfer the wet foot onto one sheet. It's important that the weight is evenly distributed on both feet at shoulder width. Lower the second foot, place it, put weight on it. Yes, just stand normally. Remove your feet and trace your wet footprint. Yes, with a pencil or marker, trace your footprints. 9 times out of 10, we will have a different pattern on each foot. What do we do next? This is the test that is needed right now by absolutely everyone. Children, teenagers, adults, kade. So we take now the heel like this, so it's visible. We get a circle like this, circle. In the center of this circle, we place a dot. The second dot is placed directly under the big toe. The third dot is between the second and third toes. We connect these 2 dots with the central dot on the heel. And these 2 lines should be outside of our foot. That is, they should be outside the foot. This is the ideal foot. This is a perfectly functioning tail muscle. If you have a picture like this, with one line like this, outside and the other is inside the foot. This is already the first stage of flat feet. I didn't draw all the stages. So if both lines are inside your foot, then this is already the third stage of flat feet. Well, this is quite a sad picture. With such a picture, you will never have a healthy spine. That is, if flat feet were present at an early age, it develops into osteochondrosis, which progresses to the second stage, protrusions, and the third stage, which is herniated intervertebral discs. The greatest and initial load with flat feet falls on the lumbar and cervical spine. So here it is. Yes, you can see how everything is repeated here. The greatest load is on the cervical and lumbosacral spine. Here is the foot. Here is the little person. Yes, can you see? So in order for us to preserve first and foremost, preserve our spine, what do we need for this? Well, we need to have the correct position of the legs, our legs. Let me show you a picture. So if we don't have flat feet and our legs I didn't take it right, did I? Our legs are in the correct straight position. Then we have a good direct load on all the joints in the legs. That is, the ankle joint is aligned. This is the vertical, this is the horizontal. The knee joints are aligned. Straight, horizontal, vertical. The hip joint also receives vertical and horizontal load. So this is the picture we have when our foot is in the ideal position. Say if our foot collapses inward, the following happens. That is, the load on the ankle joint changes. Yes, it's clearly visible, right? So we no longer have a vertical. The foot has collapsed inward. One, then the other. The load already. Yes, it changes its angle and starts to do what? Our cartilage, the cartilage tissue begins to wear out, and then problems start in the joint itself. But if our foot has collapsed inward, the knees, what will happen? The load on the knee also changes. That is, this is how the pressure in the knee joints changes. So quite simply, our knee joints start to hurt early. But if here the direction of our bones has changed in the hip joints, it also undoubtedly changes its direction. And instead of a vertical load, we experience a lateral load on the hip joint. And it looks like this in case someone doesn't know what it looks like. Here is the femoral neck which fails. Well, in some people, and you've probably all heard that, someone broke their femoral neck. So people say he was walking, fell, and broke his femoral neck. In reality, the picture is a bit different. He was walking, broke his femoral neck, and that's why the person fell. It's a bit in a different order. So it should be in this position. But if the knee joint has moved, we have moved inward, then the position of our hip joint also changes, and the load increases on the femoral neck. If the position changes here, then in the socket, here it is, it should be positioned like this in the socket. But if it changes, then the position in the socket changes like this, where it should be located. Now I will even show you clearly. So the joint should be as like this. Here it is in its socket, in the correct position. But if the knee moves inward, and then the position, look, right? So here is the correct position. Here it is. And this is already the incorrect position. So in such a state, when you walk all the time, and there is incorrect pressure on this part, then firstly, deformation occurs. Deformation of the joint, about the joint capsule. And pain also begins in the hip joints. And this leads to early wear of the cartilage tissue, disruption of blood circulation, because our hip joint starts to compress the blood vessels because its position is incorrect. What? Blood supply deteriorates. The nutrition of the joints accordingly worsens. Absolutely all of them. The ankle, knee, and hip joints. Nutrition is disrupted. And all nutrition is delivered by our blood. Blood brings both oxygen and microelements and minerals and vitamins. That is, all our nutrition comes from the circulatory system. But if our vessels and capillaries are compressed, full nutrition stops being delivered, and our bones start to suffer. And our cartilage recovers very poorly. Tissue, right? Let's look at the whole picture. Yes, here you go. This is the correct position. Here I am. This is exactly the pelvis, and these are the legs. I think everything is visible now. And this position we have happens when our foot rolls inward. So that is when it rolls inward. Next, this is not all. This is not all that happens with us when foot deformation occurs. When we have an absolutely perfect spine, everything is straight, everything is good. This is what the spine looks like. What happens next? Pelvic deformation. Each of you will make your own legs when you test according to this drawing. I will send all this later. Well, we have already sent all these pictures, but I will send it again. So, and each of you will see that on one and the other leg, you have a different picture. It is absolutely, well, 99 out of 100 people have a different picture on both legs. On one, flat foot is developing more, on the other less. But absolutely, well, there is practically no one now, 30 plus, who has a perfectly ideal foot. This is now a great rarity. So, and what happens? It happens when we have a different picture on two legs, it leads to a pelvic tilt. That is, our pelvis, yes, changes to this position. Now I will show it in the picture, then we will return to the spine again. So the ideal position should be like this. Here is the pelvis, and here is our perfectly vertical spine. But if it starts with us, with pelvic deformation, the spine begins to adjust in this way. The load changes. That is, it is no longer perfectly vertical, but it is now like this. Yes, with a deviation to the left or right side. But if our pelvis has deformed the spine in the lumbar region, thoracic, then we won't walk like this. That is, we would fall, so the entire spine begins to adjust. Then the thoracic region also starts to adjust to maintain balance. So it shifts to the other side. The cervical region. Well, how? Even if the thoracic region, we won't walk like this. Of course, the cervical region starts trying to align our spine, and we get this kind of picture in the spine. So instead of this, we get this kind of picture in the spine. I'm explaining this now. We are just now approaching our foot and only approaching our spine. Now I will visually show you. So please, there's a pelvic tilt. Our lower back tries, right? So it's straight here, but it comes out for us. But we need to ensure that our body remains vertical, us to have balance. Therefore, a curve occurs in the spine, but the rest won't be like that. So then the thoracic section starts trying to straighten our spine. Then the spine straightens, but our head won't be like this. So the cervical section also starts to adjust so that our head is in a straight position. And as a result, we end up with this kind of, yes, this kind of curved spine. And of course, in such a curved spine, we start to see, look here, in this part, the intervertebral discs begin to get compressed. Let me show you closer, okay? Look here. So what happens is they get compressed here. The supply of nutrients stops to the intervertebral disc. It starts to dry out without nourishment, but begins to crack. And the cracks become deeper, deeper, and deeper. As a result, the crack goes inward into the composite ring, that is, all the way through. And it starts to ooze out this gel-like fluid, oozing out from, the intervertebral disc. So this is what is called a herniated intervertebral disc or spinal disc herniation. So, and in order for us to avoid such serious spinal problems, the company has created this ideal device that restores our foot. So the most important thing, is balance and the restoration of the sale muscle, which is restored thanks to this curve that is on this orthopedic device. So I am not afraid to call it a device. And if you have already noticed that over time, as you get older, you start wearing a size slightly larger than you did in your youth, this is the first sign that your foot has started to flatten. So your foot was once different. It means your foot hasn't grown. Our feet grow, well, like the rest of the body, approximately until the age of 27. The entire remaining life. Only the ears and nose continue to grow in a person. Well, by microscopic, millimeters, fractions of a millimeter per year, but they keep growing throughout life. The foot. Your foot hasn't grown. Your foot. Yes, it just flattened out and moved forward. That's exactly why we start wearing slightly larger sizes. Now look, here's another picture. Yes, it clearly shows. So this foot is our normal foot. This foot has flattened. So if we measure this distance and this distance, they are exactly the same. The foot hasn't grown. It has flattened and become longer. Therefore, everyone notices that as they get older, they start wearing shoes of a larger size, thinking that their foot has grown. The foot hasn't grown, it has flattened. The arch of the foot has gone, and that's why our foot has become bigger. Now let's sort this out a bit, shall we? So who needs these insoles? These insoles are absolutely necessary for everyone whose foot size has reached size 35. If these are children or teenagers, if at the moment you have tested the feet of your entire family, your entire circle, and at the moment the foot holds an ideal shape and there is no flat foot, then this insole provides excellent prevention. This is the device that a person needs throughout their entire life. Because you can't say, oh, there's no flat foot, so I don't need anything. Nah. Today there isn't, tomorrow there might be. Nothing is eternal, and it won't always be this way. If things are good today, they need to be maintained, because support and prevention, as you know, are much more effective than treating any problem in our body. Therefore, it's very important to do a test. And these kinds of insoles are for absolutely everyone, so that there is no collapse later on of the foot, no deformation occurs in the bones, so that we don't suffer from joint problems later on. Many of you already have such conditions like, well, arthrosis, knee joints, ankle, hip joints, arthrosis. Where does it come from? It comes precisely from improper load on our skeletal system. That is, the load should be like this. In this condition, it does not develop absolutely any joint problems in our legs. And the legs bear the greatest load. That is, they carry our body throughout all the years, and they bear simply tons of our weight daily. So therefore, every step is the weight of our body. So if we count every step, how much we carry, it will be several tons of load in one day. And here's what really interested me. I was intrigued by the composition of these insoles. Firstly, if it goes, the manufacturer tells us that the lifespan of these insoles is 50 years. That's really cool. That means we bought them once. So we didn't just purchase them, we invested in our own health. And they forgot about it for 50 years. If at the moment there are already problems with the spine, if there are protrusions, hernias, of course, these insoles, I won't deceive you and say that these insoles will cure your hernias. No, they won't cure a spinal hernia, but they will prevent further deterioration or corpus of the spine. That is, they will prevent the development of osteochondrosis in all parts of your spine. They will prevent the development of protrusions. This is the next stage of osteochondrosis. And of course, well, they will prevent further deterioration and the formation of new hernias. This is prevention, maintenance, and preservation from further destruction. If there are already serious problems in the spine, then of course you need to address the spine, but that's a completely different topic. What else is interesting here in these insoles? Those of you who are already using these insoles have probably noticed that there are small bumps in certain places on these insoles. So, and these bumps, well, they are not there to prevent your foot from slipping. That is, they also have their own functional purpose. So they are on the heel and in the middle of the foot, right? So pay attention. Everyone who already has these insoles, you can look at your insoles and notice that there are certain bumps. Why are these bumps there? They weren't just randomly placed there. So you can notice that they are positioned the same on each insole. Why are they needed? So now we will take a look. Okay, here it is, our insole. Yes, here it is, right here. This is the insole, and on it are bumps. All these bumps correspond to specific points. Now I will, yes, show you the foot. Yes, so here is the foot. See, there is the left one, and you can see, or maybe not. I can't see anything myself. I can't see anything myself right now. So everything is on the screen. So here is our foot. And in this foot, I will also drop a picture of this foot. We have points that are responsible for the functioning of our internal organs. And here, I have drawn these points directly on the insole, which are located here. So here. This point corresponds to the thyroid iron, right? This one is the work of the lungs. These two little points on one foot, this is on the right foot. These 2 points are responsible for the functioning of the liver, and on the left foot for the functioning of the heart. Next, we look together here. So this point corresponds to the functioning of the stomach. This point for the functioning of the pancreas. These are these little bumps that are on the insoles, located on the insoles. This outermost point this is the functioning of the bladder. Here. These 2 points are for the functioning of the intestines. Between them, right in the middle, is the insomnia point. So even the IA insole works with this. And even at this point, which is responsible for a good sleep, there we also have such an elevation that creates micro pressure. And the central point on the heel is responsible for the urogenital system, or more precisely, for the reproductive organs. So these protrusions on the insole, they also create micro pressure, which is why it's very good to wear the insole. It's very good to wear it on bare feet. Or if you wear socks, they should be very thin. So with thick socks, we will get foot support if the socks are dense, but we won't get the micro pressure on certain points that enhance the function of our internal organs. And that's not all. So what else are we taking with us? We are taking the insole. We turn it over. Just out of curiosity, everyone should definitely check this at home. So here on the arch of the foot, and the arch of the foot is not only a shock absorber, it also contains a very powerful chakra that provides energy to the whole body. And right here in the arch of the foot, there are magnets. So in this way, 6 magnets are placed on the insole. They are drawn in black, and these are the magnets. Now, they are probably clearly visible to understand that these are indeed magnets. Here they are, embedded in the insole. Look, I even just use a needle now. See, it sticks to the magnet, right? Now, where are our magnets? Here are our magnets. You can see them, right? The needles just stick to the magnets that are embedded in our insole. You see, right? They are magnetized. We can place it in another spot to another magnet. So there are 6 of them here, and they are located in the most important place. Why these magnets? Many of you, perhaps, who had shoulder or neck pain, went to the doctor, and the doctor prescribed magnets. So you went to the physiotherapy room, and they placed magnets on you. For what purpose? That is, magnets magnetize our blood. And magnetotherapy effectively relieves spasms from the walls of blood vessels and capillaries. This is called magnetotherapy. And this magnetotherapy is built into these insoles. We have forgotten how to walk barefoot on the ground, even in good summer weather, when it's possible. We are careful with our feet, not wanting to wash them unnecessarily. And even when we are at the dacha or someone lives in their own house, we try to walk everywhere in shoes. And now, all this footwear is plastic, like these flip-flops. They prevent us from receiving the magnetic field from Mother Earth. So in order for us to receive the magnetic field 365 days a year, the manufacturer has placed these magnets here, which magnetize our blood, the walls of our vessels, and the walls of our capillaries. What happens as we get older is that we lose our magnetic field. Each of you sees how our children and grandchildren are always on the move, how much energy they have, how much vitality. And as we get older, we already want to sit down somewhere and rest a bit. So why is that? That is, we are losing our magnetic field. And when we lose it, the walls of our blood vessels, which should work elastically, go into spasm. And this worsens the flow of blood through the vessels. When the magnetic field magnetizes the walls of our blood vessels, they relax from their spasm state, exhale, and begin to work smoothly, pushing the blood upwards from the legs. Yes, the venous blood rises to our heart. These magnets affect not only our legs. This is a direct impact on the functioning of our heart, because our heart is a pump. Some call it a motor. No, it is not a motor, though it is a pump, and it constantly pumps blood. That is and that is in children. This happens very well because, well, there is a sufficient magnetic field. That is, when our blood flows from top to bottom to the legs, it has already given away all the oxygen, all the nutrients, collects all. The lymph collects all the toxins. The dirtiest blood flows down to the legs. And our heart has to pump the blood from the legs through the longest vessels. That is, from the heart to the legs, we have the longest vessels. And from there it tries to lift the dirty, viscous, and cold blood back up. That is, and our heart, goes, And the dirtier the blood and the worse the condition of the vessels, the more our heart muscle is strained, which leads to the development of various cardiovascular diseases. These include all sorts of arrhythmias, angina, extrasystole, and so on. There are a lot of diseases. As a result, this also leads to coronary heart disease. And ischemia is the premature wear of the heart muscle when it was once firm, and then it became all flabby because it simply wore out ahead of time. And further, this leads to a myocardial infarction. In order for us to relieve the load on the heart, to reduce it, that is, right here, magnetotherapy is also used, yes, which magnetizes our blood cells, which magnetizes the walls of our capillaries and vessels, and accordingly, the blood becomes more fluid. It doesn't become thinner or anything like that. No, that is, as our blood was, it will not become some kind of water. Our blood stops sticking together. Our blood just becomes more fluid. That is, there is a state, yes, let's simply compare. There is compote, there is jelly. Let's put it in a funnel, place a funnel, and pour it into a bottle. Our compote, it will pass through perfectly. It will pass and quickly pour into our bottle. But if we are put a funnel in the neighboring bottle and start pouring jelly into it, this jelly will begin to get stuck in the funnel, and it will start to drip out in small portions or even in chunks, plopping into the bottle. So this is how blood is fluid. Here it is cold blood and viscous blood. So two states, viscous blood and flowing blood. So it is precisely from viscous, bring the blood from a viscous state to a fluid state. That is normal when we are analyzing it right now. It's very important for me that each of you understands what this device does and can convey this to every member of your family, to your acquaintances, to your loved ones. So this is how blood cells move through our vessels, capillaries and veins, when everything is fine, when we have a wonderful magnetic field, when we have vessels. There are also valves here. I haven't drawn them, little valves on both sides. And these valves, now I will show you. Yes. So this is how they are located. Also, the little valves that open, let the blood through, close here, open there, and it moves further. It closes here, the next one opens. So in the vessels, there must constantly be pressure. So the blood comes, it pushes the valve further. Yes, here the valve closed. Yes, then the next valve opened and the blood moved further. So when our blood is in a good condition, it circulates perfectly through our blood vessels. If it starts to clump, the blood particles start to stick together like this. This is thick blood. So they start to stick together. And these clumps find it harder to pass through our vessels and capillaries. So what happens? This thick blood sticks to the walls of the vessels. The vessels start to expand, and the walls of the vessels stretch, and we begin to develop varicose veins. If we don't pay attention to this, then this condition, yes, in our stretched vessels, the blood moves in clumps, and in some section, suddenly the wall can't withstand it, and it bursts. If this happens somewhere on our body, it can just result in bruises. But if this occurs in the brain, then the blood starts to leak beyond the capillary, and this results in a stroke. So look, we have now discussed that this insole provides us with heart attack prevention because it improves blood circulation in the legs. Heart attacks are only caused by the legs. A heart attack is not the head. A heart attack is not a problem in the heart itself. No, a heart attack resides in the legs. It is the legs that wear out our heart and bring it to a state of a heart attack, myocardial infarction. The legs and more, no one else. Stroke. Many of you think it's a head problem. No, a stroke is a problem of the legs. A stroke resides in the legs, and its consequences reach the head. That is, the blood thickens in the legs, and when it is thicker and clumpy, rises to the head. The blood in the head does not thicken. It only thickens in the legs. In the head, it does not clump together. It only clumps in the legs. And when this clumped, thick blood reaches our head vessels, that is, it can block a vessel. And there can be two problems, either an ischemic or a hemorrhagic stroke. Both can lead to a fatal outcome. Ischemic and hemorrhagic, they differ slightly. That is, ischemic, it blocks. That is, the blood flows, it blocks, and then the blood goes through other vessels. And in this area, the brain cells stop receiving nutrients and oxygen, and they simply die. Hemorrhagic is when it also gets blocked. But the vessel bursts, ruptures, and bleeding occurs in the brain. This is what we call a hemorrhagic stroke. But both, the cause of both types of stroke is nothing other than thick blood, which has thickened in our legs. Also, in the composition here, in the composition of these insoles from what they are made, firstly, They are really very durable, very cool. They have ribs like these stiffness, so that under load it doesn't sag or bend, but constantly these ribs of stiffness maintain the perfect position of the insole for 50 years ahead. Next, in the composition, the manufacturer stated that the composition includes our components that ionize ions. What are ions? Ions are negatively charged oxygen particles. And our body in general, oxygen comes in two types. That is, these are positive anions and negative ones. And positive ions, there are very many of them in our urban air. There is a huge amount of them. Near computers, our phones, which we don't part with, sometimes even placing them next to us at night, which is undesirable. The phone should be at least 2 meters away from where we sleep. These are our microwaves, televisions. So all screen surfaces interact with oxygen. And even if there are particles of pure oxygen, they transform it into dirty, heavy oxygen with a positive charge. That is positive, heavy oxygen. And this oxygen is not absorbed by blood cells. It is not absorbed by our body. And accordingly, if our cells stop breathing, all processes slow down. Metabolic processes in the cell. That is, it begins what begins again. It's the same problem. That contributes to blood viscosity. So there it is. Two physical properties improve blood circulation in our body. That is magnetotherapy and pure oxygen. Many of you have been to the sea multiple times. Some have been to a health resort. And now just think about where are health resorts built. Health resorts are built either on the seashore or in a coniferous forest. And there are no other options. So the best health resort is exactly there. And when we arrive at the sea or come to a health resort in a coniferous forest, immediately we start to feel good. Arrived at the sea, immediately forgot about the headache, about the pressure. Forgot about aching joints. Everything is just great for us. Why? Because there are a lot of negatively charged particles, those anions of pure oxygen, which quickly enter our bloodstream. This happens, Duchin, as soon as we step off the train or plane, and we are already somewhere near the sea air, and we already feel an improvement in our condition. Why? Again, pure oxygen immediately saturates our blood, making it more fluid. By the way, sea air, it is completely identical in composition, in chemical composition, to the plasma of our blood. That is, imagine, that is sea air and plasma of our blood. Accordingly, we are improving. Plasma in our blood immediately improves. Its fluidity enhances. All our joints, all our bones, our brain, everything receives good circulation immediately. We feel great. But when we return to our city, where we live, we all, as we say, oh, I came back and immediately got sick. And why did we get sick immediately? Because again, the supply of pure oxygen stopped. Our blood started to thicken sharply again, or the viscosity increased. And immediately, we all of us, our immunity drops right away. And we get sick. All our chronic diseases start to manifest very vividly. So, therefore, we return here. Two important functions: magnetotherapy and ionization. Improve the flow of our blood in the legs, thereby ensuring the function of our heart and provide prevention of strokes, heart attacks, varicose veins, thrombosis, and so on. Therefore, I can't even bring myself to call this device insoles. I have a completely different name for them. It's the shock absorber of our body. It's a device for ensuring the health of our entire organism. Also, these insoles are breathable, meaning they have these little holes that help our feet breathe. I have flat feet myself, and I'll show you. Well, I'll send photos after the presentation. You'll be very surprised. It's an instant effect for foot support. I've had flat feet since childhood, and I couldn't solve this issue. As a result, both longitudinal and transverse flat feet. So I started developing a bunion, and these are my photos. I took them just the other day because I wanted to share the instant result. There is truly an instant result in the change of the foot, and you will see it a little later. Many of you say that it's very painful to walk. This part, it kind of presses on the arch of the foot. If your foot is healthy, it will never hurt. It will only be comfortable and nothing more. If it hurts, then there's a problem. With the foot, yes, you already have an issue with the arch of the foot. But here is your choice. Either you remove, yes, this device from your shoes and continue to damage your joints and your spine, or you come to terms with this pain syndrome. Although if we just, yes, to spite ourselves, we can say we continue to wear them, then literally not more than a week will pass and you will forget that it hurt here. Well, in rare cases when the foot is already quite neglected, this pain effect may persist. Well, up to 2 weeks. But then that is, it will just be comfortable for you. Well, you will slightly feel this lift, but the pain syndrome will no longer be there. So, well, it's each person's choice, of course. What do you want? This small device can still preserve your entire musculoskeletal system. And regarding the size of the insoles, that is, you need to purchase the size of the insoles that you used to wear. That is, the ones you wore when you were 30 years old. Yes, 27 to 30 years old. If you wore a size 35 and now you are a size 36, well, in principle, you purchase insoles of size 35 to 36. If you were a size 36 and became a size 37, you don't take 37, 38. You purchase an insole of size 36 that is 35 to 36. Why do you need a larger insole? You need to return your, yes, flattened foot. It has flattened. You need to return it to the size you had when you were not more than 30 years old. If you were a size 37 and it became 38, well, accordingly, everything is even. Well, you take 37 to 38. But if you are now 37 to 38 and were a size 36, keep in mind you need an insole of size 36, 35 to 36. That is, you return there. Otherwise, your foot will be supported and the insole will be too big for you. Also, it's not exactly an insole here, it's a half insole, and this is also a very important factor because our toes and the ball of the foot, which is under the toes, right? Now I'll take this here, about this ball. This ball should always be active. It should not be fixed. What can be fixed is the arch of the foot and the heel. So here is the fixation. Beyond that, our toes should always be active. They should spring and they should help strengthen the arch of the foot. Therefore, it's also an important function. What is the important function that makes it different? What makes it different? Please ask the question again. I didn't hear it. Well, okay, we'll have time for questions soon and you can ask then. So our toes should be free. They should spring. This is a very significant difference from a regular orthopedic insole, which completely fixes our foot. So here there's freedom. Yes, free movement for the toes. And this is also very important because as they bear weight, they strengthen the transverse muscles of the foot. And the transverse muscle in turn provides good tone for the longitudinal muscle of our foot. Therefore, this function is also very important. Besides, it doesn't interfere with any of our footwear. Any sandals, it's absolutely invisible there. And pay attention to this part as well. This part, it shouldn't now. Where is my foot here? It shouldn't extend beyond the foot. That is, the insole should not be such that when we run our hand across the heel like this, it shouldn't catch. The heel should fit very snugly, like this, right here. When we run a finger across, the insole should not catch. It shouldn't. So the heel should press right up like this, right, yes? I'm thinking how to show you better. So the heel should be like this, not like this, girls, but exactly like this. And boys too, if we have any, right? There. So this insole should be like this once again. Pay attention so that when we run our hand like this, it shouldn't catch. The heel should be firmly in place. Then all the points will be in their proper place. By the way, if you take an insole of a larger size, you won't hit these points that constantly stimulate the function of your internal organs. And when you correctly place the heel right here, properly set it, yes, the heel right in this spot, then all the points will work with your internal organs. That's it. And when we accordingly have our pelvis in the correct position, then gradually, yes, the load on the spine decreases because a level pelvis contributes to a straight position of the spine. And we, yes, move away from various problems with the musculoskeletal system. Well, that's probably all for the review. Always remember that prevention is key when it comes to insoles. If everything is fine now, it won't always be that way. All of us used to have much better health than we do now. Therefore, everything gradually deteriorates. That's why insoles are needed for children, teenagers, and those who play sports. In other words, absolutely everyone. I even recommend putting them in socks at home. If you already have a significant degree of flat feet and you spend most of your time at home, make sure to wear them at home as well. We only take them off when we go to bed because there's no need then. Well, that's probably it. Ladies, that's the entire review on insoles. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Olga, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Could you please tell me if there are metal structures in the foot? How does it affect? Are there any contraindications regarding the insoles?
And where do you have the metal structures?
I had valgus bones removed.
Well, they are free now, aren't they?
They will be free. Oh, right. Oh, how inattentive I am.
Yes. So, yes.
I forgot.
Yes. So metal, even if there are metal structures. Why am I asking? Because if, for example, there are metal structures, sometimes there are serious injuries, accidents, and the metal structure is placed, well, in these bones. It's placed in these bones. There might be the slight discomfort when walking. But even if there is a metal structure that holds your bones, to reduce the load on the bones that still have metal parts in them, you still need to strengthen your muscles. So there are absolutely no contraindications here. Yes.
It was important for me to hear that from you, so thank you very much for the broadcast. Everything was very informative and very correct. The presentation was simply magnificent.
So I'm indeed very glad. Da,
Tatiana.
I would like to say yes, magnificent.